We used to be the leader of the world that wanted to be free. It was a term I used to use all the time. We were the ones who, after World War II, created an environment of alliances, of democracy. And it spread, and it did very, very well. But in recent years, the pressures and the forces that Madeleine talked about has come into play. They've come into play. And what are we doing? We're walking away from agreements. We're walking away from the alliances, frankly, that we used to have. The president goes to Europe to a NATO meeting, but he starts out by insulting some of the other participants, our allies. And so America has to take a hard look at itself, and especially the Congress. Take a hard look at yourself and see what we are doing to try to keep these forces in check and put America back in the middle of all this, as opposed to being sort of a reluctant player and trying to pull out of agreements rather than helping to make new agreements. With respect to Charlottesville, and not just Charlottesville, but a general situation within the country, I'm deeply troubled by what happened in Charlottesville, but also by the fact that we are now seeing these fissures to break out in our society among blacks and whites, Latinos and others, immigrants and those who are not immigrants. This is so unfortunate, because when I look at what's happened in the last 50 years and what I've been able to do as a son of immigrants and a black kid rise to the top of our government, I am so proud of that. And yet we still have these forces that are pulling us apart. And those forces are being encouraged by some of the things that are happening in political life. And we should not let that happen. The savior to all this are our children. And I tell many stories about the kids I talk to and how they're growing up learning not to hate rather than learning to hate. So what we have to do is focus on our young people. Some of the old folks, if that's the way they feel, that's the way they feel. They're not going to change. But we have to make sure that we are teaching all of our children in school, in the home, everywhere, that it is not right to hate in this country. This is a country of love. This is a country of kindness. This is a country that we reach out to each other and we reach out to the rest of the world. And the rest of the world is expecting that of us, and they're seeing less and less of us, and that's part of the major problem we have.
Do you think this president can be a moral leader for the world?
I don't know that he can do that, because right now that is not the way he is acting. Let me give you an example. My favorite 3 words in our Constitution is the first 3 words: we the people. We the people. But recently it's become me the president, as opposed to we the people. And you see things that should not be happening. How can a president of the United States get up and say that the media is the enemy of Americans? Hasn't he read the First Amendment? You're not supposed to like everything the press says or what anyone says in the First Amendment. That's why we have a First Amendment, to protect that kind of speech. So if we keep doing things like this and creating additional fissures in our society, it's not going to serve us well on the international stage. And I hope the president can come to the realization that he should really stop insulting people. And I used this 2 years ago when I said I could not vote for him in the 2016 election. And why? He insulted everybody. He insulted African Americans. He insulted women. He insulted immigrants. He insulted our best friends around the world. He used that. He insulted all of his fellow candidates up on the stage during the debates. And I don't think that's what should be coming out of a president of the United States. But I don't see anything that's changed in the last 2 years.
Madeleine, you wrote an important book about fascism, about the dangers around the world. And you did talk about America. And I'm wondering, have the last few months, have they made you more worried, less worried? Because you talk about how many of these democratic institutions in many parts of the world, including the United States, are more fragile than we think.
Well, some people think the book is alarming. It is supposed to be alarming, because I am very worried. It has a historical context in terms of how fascism came about after World War I, with Mussolini and then with Hitler and Franco. And yet there are examples now of countries that are doing exactly what Colin was talking about. There are divisions in all our countries, and you need leaders that can bring us together for common answers instead of leaders that exacerbate those divisions. And I see that in a number of countries in Europe: Hungary, Poland, Turkey, and then in the Philippines, Venezuela. And what you had asked Colin in terms of our values, we used to be the country that talked about democratic values and also this kind of thing that Colin was talking about, to understand each other instead of trying to find the scapegoat and figure out who's created the problems. And so I think that I am worried. The best quote in the book is from Mussolini, who actually said, "You can pluck a chicken one feather at a time and nobody will notice." There is a lot of feather plucking going on in what are kind of steps that don't seem big at the time, but if you put them all together, they are moving more and more into a direction where there is no respect for institutions, where we call the press the enemy of the people, where the president thinks he's above the law, and where we are not engaged enough in political activity in terms of people really getting in there and doing something. You know, it's interesting. All three of us are immigrants, and I am such a grateful immigrant. I came here when I was 11. Who would have thought that I could become Secretary of State? And so I do think that we need to be grateful, understand who we are, and talk about our values, and not kind of say America's a victim. I can't believe that. Kind of, everybody's taking advantage of us. That is so not true. We are the most powerful country in the world with the best story, and we need to really validate that and make clear that others also have opportunities.
The world is watching, and they cannot believe we're doing things like separating mothers and children who are trying to get across the border from south of our border, immigrants. They can't believe that we're making such an effort to cease immigration coming into the country. It's what's kept us alive. I mean, just look at the three of us. I am the children of immigrants, but I would be proud to be an immigrant.
Yeah.
You guys are immigrants.
We outrank you.
They outrank me. But what a country.
Yeah.
But I see it everywhere. I see it in our airport terminals when I see who's behind the counters, who's doing this, who's doing that. When I go out to my business interests in Silicon Valley, I see immigrants there who are creating value in America. The folks who are doing manual labor, they're doing it so they can send their kids to college. That's the way this country works. And how can we be walking away from this model? And the other half of that is the world is watching and wondering, why are we pulling away from all the things we helped create? Is that going to make a better America, a better world? Well, I don't think it's going to make a better America. It can't be a better America. We are great now. We always have been great. And so I think what we really have to do is to start changing our mode of dealing with the rest of the world and try to get a system where we are calming down, stop insulting everybody, and see if we cannot reach out.